Alright guys, so in the last video I have showed you how to set up a smart action to compensate weapon recoil. And in today's video I want to show you how you can organize smart actions to compensate weapon recoil for your primary and secondary weapon. In most cases, the primary and secondary weapon have different recoil patterns, so having a smart action setup that can keep track of which weapon you are using is, in my opinion, really important. Now let's first look at the demonstration example. Here we have an operator that has two different weapons. The primary weapon has a rather moderate recoil and the secondary weapon has a really strong recoil. So using one recoil compensation for both weapons wouldn't really work. Now let's go into the Nexus manager. The setup you can see here is the one from my first recoil video. As I have explained in that video, I have split the smart actions into a vertical and horizontal element. These will also only be active for when I hold down my ADS button. Let me press my right trigger so the smart actions become active. As you can see, for the vertical recoil I use a value of 1% and for the horizontal recoil I use a value of 0.03. When I go into the game and shoot the weapon, you can see that the recoil is basically 0 now. My current setup will always activate the smart action when I shoot a weapon in the ADS mode, so there is no weapon tracking yet. As a result, the smart action will also be active for when I shoot my secondary weapon. As you can see, its recoil is so much stronger that it almost looks like as if the smart action isn't even running. Now there is one additional problem to consider here. When I empty a few more magazines of the secondary weapon, you can see that there is a lot of horizontal randomization. I will not be able to compensate that, as the weapon will randomly kick to the left or right. Now let's go back into the Nexus manager. First scroll down and rename the first and second group to primary and secondary. Once it is done, you can scroll up again and open the binding menu of the vertical smart action. In the top right corner, you can now assign the primary group to the smart action. After that, press the copy button at the bottom and exit this menu. Next, you must assign the primary group to the horizontal smart action. So once again, click on the smart action and then select the primary group in the top right corner. After that, you can close this menu and create a smart action that will handle the secondary recoil. So click on the plus button at the bottom of the binding list. There you have the option to click on the paste binding button. This will create a second instance of our vertical smart action. First, assign a group to it again. This time it will be the secondary one. Also, I will change the intensity of the recoil effect to 3.12% now. Next, you can exit this menu and open the horizontal recoil binding. Click on the copy button at the bottom and then create a new binding again. In the selection menu, you can choose the paste binding option again. Here you must now do the same as before, so switch the group from primary to secondary. At last I will change the recoil intensity to 0%. Since my secondary has mostly randomized horizontal recoil, there isn't any point in trying to compensate it. If your secondary weapon has horizontal recoil, then just use a matching value here. Next we must handle the group management. Leave this menu and click on the button that switches your weapon. For me that is the Y button. At the top you can now change the activation method to press. After that, open the Smart Action Manager and add 2 toggle group actions. The second one must be switched to secondary now. What we have achieved so far is the following. When I exit this menu and press my switch weapon button, the Nexus Manager will automatically cycle between the primary and secondary group. So each time I switch my weapon, the Nexus will also change the Smart Action groups. Now there is one last thing to add, which is a button that will let you reset the groups. This will be necessary if you accidentally desynced the groups. By that I mean that your Nexus is running the secondary group, but in your game you have equipped your primary weapon. To solve that, I will add a second back button binding. And I will bind it in a way that will not obstruct my current back button binding. So let me quickly add a new back button. Next I will enter the Smart Action Manager and add the following actions. A wait action, a group activation and group deactivation action. First I will set the wait action to 1 second. After that the deactivation action will be set to secondary. This smart action will now only trigger if I hold down the back button for more than 1 second. So whenever I press it for less than 1 second, my normal back button binding will be activated. And when I hold it for more than 1 second, my Nexus will switch back into the primary group. Let me leave this menu and scroll up again. By pressing the Y button, I can switch between the 2 recoil groups. And if for whatever reason I get out of sync, I can just hold down my back button for more than 1 second and I will be back in the primary group. This can be useful if you forget to switch your groups before you respawn. If you die with your secondary but spawn with your primary, then your groups would otherwise be out of sync. At last, here you have the in-game example of how this trick works. As you can see, the recoil for both weapons is pretty much 0 now. So guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button or maybe even subscribe to this channel to not miss out on any of the upcoming videos. Also, contrary to popular belief, this channel is not an official XIM channel. I run this channel in my free time to bring you guys the latest XIM news and tricks. So if you want to support what I do, then maybe consider to join the YouTube channel membership. Channel members usually get around 1 to 4 weeks of early access to all new videos. Plus, we also have a nice little Discord to discuss XIM settings and other stuff. But that's about it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching and I will maybe see you in the next one.